Hello, midlife sisters. I hope everyone is feeling amazing. Hey, Nicole.
Hello.
So, this month, the month of May, I can't even believe it's May already. Like, where did the first third of the year go? We're now in month five. Oh my gosh. So, the month of May, we are talking about detoxifying for hormone health. And you and I were chatting about this, and I thought, heck does that even mean? I mean, it means a lot to you and I because this is our world and we live in health and wellness and fitness. But I thought, let's break this down to the nitty gritty, to like as much the most basic concept possible so that everyone can really understand and hopefully kind of have a wow, oh my gosh, I didn't realize kind of reaction when we start sharing this. So let's just start with detoxifying. What we're talking about is reducing the toxins that enter our body, basically, that are in our world from things we use or eat that enter our body. And then they impact our hormones and hormone health. You and I were also talking about this. I said to you, what the heck does that mean? I think for a lot of people, it means, oh, she's hormonal. It's her period. That means she's moody. But there's so much more to hormones than just our mood. So, Nicole, this is your area of expertise. Share with everybody, what exactly does that mean? And I guess, what is the role that hormones play in our body? Because it's so much more
Right,
than our moods. And I would say that's kind of a small part on the scale of importance, really. So
right.
tell us about our lovely hormones.
Well, I'm going to try to just keep it really basic. We
Yeah.
have seven systems in our body. One of them is called the endocrine system, and that is a system that helps make hormones. And hormones play so many important roles in our body. So I'm going to just take it from kind of like the hierarchy of hormones. So the first kind of hormone category we call is oxytocin. And the hormones that help us with oxytocin, and oxytocin, what oxytocin is kind of like your happy hormone, your joy hormone. So when we want to kind of stimulate, the brain hormones like such as serotonin or dopamine, I think of oxytocin. So oxytocin is like doing stuff that you love, having that hug, having that cuddle with your animal, right?
Mm.
Doing things that kind, and we all know that, right? Like I know,
Yeah.
like when I lay on the couch and my cat comes over and lays on me, I'm like, your body will start to make happier, more happier hormones so that like there's this balance between dopamine and serotonin, and your body can do that naturally, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of the first is like just, keeping those brain chemistry, those hormones happy. So you can create them yourself. Then other hormones that we think about that are really, really important is our cortisol. So that is a hormone around stress, right? So as women in midlife, we hear all the time about our cortisol, and that is actually another level of hormones. And we have what's called a 24-hour cortisol curve. And there is a healthy curve that happens where you wake up in the morning and your cortisol starts to rise, and it kind of peaks in the afternoon and then starts to lower down. And that's kind of like the normal healthy cortisol 24-hour cycle. And so that means that you're waking up where you're feeling actually, good and healthy, and your brain is ready to get out of bed, and you're peaking in your energy, and then it might come down a little bit as you're winding down for bed. But for most women in midlife, what happens is our 24-hour cortisol, 24-hour curve is all over the place. So it could be the opposite, where like you don't have any, and then you have too much at night, and you go to bed and you're like wired, call it wired and tired. So that's
Right.
another level of hormones. Hormones help us wake up, hormones give us energy, hormones help us go to sleep. So that's another level in the hierarchy of cortisol. Okay, easy to understand so far. So we've got
Yep.
makes us happy, makes us excited, joyful about life. Another level is about sleeping, energy, waking up. Okay.
So
The next
important.
one, right, is around insulin. Insulin is another hormone. Women in midlife, what I often see is that your insulin levels are now resistant. What does even resistant means? It's that the pancreas is not properly maybe releasing the level of insulin needed to balance your blood sugar because it's tired. It's been drunk way too many times and it's not recovering as fast, if I can explain that properly. It means that you're eating way too often, right? And so every time you eat, you're thinking that your pancreas has to go to work, your liver has to go to work.
And when
Uh,
you say drunk, Nicole, you don't necessarily mean that you've been drinking so much all the time, right? That was just an expression you're using, just
yeah,
to clarify for people. That's just
yeah,
been abused too many
right.
times,
Too
right?
many times, just overworked, overused, and
Right,
confused. It's actually not working to its optimal function. So I use
right,
drunk as a just an expression of most women can
right.
relate,
Yeah,
right?
just
When
in
you're
case
drunk,
people
you're
thought,
not.
oh, I don't drink. But
Yeah,
so it's just, yeah.
yeah. So, what I want to say about insulin is I really want you to get your head wrapped around of like every time that you are eating, you're calling on that hormone, insulin. And your body is now deciding, do I how much insulin do I need to give so I can bring the levels down. So if you just let's say binged on a bag of jubes and you know had a sugary drink, like your insulin is going to kind of come in and go, holy cow, like I don't want you to harm yourself, that's way too much sugar. So your body is calling on the insulin, which is another hormone, to bring it down. So that's another level of hormones, is helping you balance and regulate your blood sugar, which is a really big deal, and a really big deal when we're women in midlife, because oftentimes when women come to us and they have weight issues around the belly or
Yep.
the arms, right? Or in places you don't want to have this extra weight, there's a couple things that we're looking at. Most of the time when we do our diving with clients, they've lost their joy.
Yep.
They're not doing things that are bringing joy. They're effing stressed out, like depending on where they're at in their life, but from the
Mhm.
career to the kids to the, you know, and a lot of women are having kids later.
Yeah.
So, you know, in their 50s, they're still dealing with, you know, 10-year-olds or even
Right.
5-year-olds, right? So the level of stress of a woman going through menopause and hormone changes and having to deal with the kids. So now your cortisol level is like all like this. And then you're dealing with your insulin sugars, because a lot of women, when we talk to them, what are they doing? They're drinking
Yep.
what? They're drinking alcohol. They're drinking coffee to stay awake, right? They're forgetting to eat. They're living on a liquid diet, right? Then their hormones are all over whack. Okay, so those are your kind of like your three top. Then we have to have the whole conversation around your sex hormones, women. So that's your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, your DHEA for brain function. And so if imagine those three are out of order already, these guys are out of whack. Okay, so this is when we talk about advanced blood testing, Dutch hormone panel, saliva testing, blood testing to find out where those sex hormones are at, right? And yes, you can check for your blood glucose. Yes, you can check for your cortisol. Yes, you can check for, you know, the other hormones like serotonin and that. You typically need to work with a functional medicine doctor or a naturopathic doctor or a
Mhm.
hormone doctor that is adverse and educated in this area. So typically when you go to your medical doctor, they're not trained to really do a deeper dive on what's going on with hormones other than the basics. So just keep
Right.
that in mind. Not making them wrong, it's just their level of education and maybe not an interest for them to do more education. And so, why that is important, what we want to talk about today is we're talking about estrogen disruptors. And I got a few notes here that I want to talk to you about here. So, you know, Melissa, you did a Dutch panel. What did you learn about your Dutch panel? So, that's urine based. So, you would do a test, you would do it over a 24-hour, you would get a cortisol. Chart to find out what your cortisol is like, good, bad, unbalanced. You would also get information on your sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and then you can find out how you're processing them, right? So are you a good processor? Are you not? What most people don't know is that there's actually three ways for our body to deal with, let's say, dangerous estrogens, estrogens that we don't want in our body, right? And so the Dutch hormone panel is showing you how you're detoxing, or are you detoxing, or are you recycling it? And when we learn this is why testing is so important. If you're a recycler, you're at high risk of cancer. So that means, like, when you are, and we're going to talk about this today, and this is why this conversation is so important, is there are things that you can do to avoid these dangerous estrogens even from entering your body, especially if you're a really bad detoxer and you keep on recycling them around. And we know that the women that are bad detoxers or don't have the healthy diet or right supplements to get rid of those estrogen disruptors, they are at higher risk of cancers. And this is why we're having this conversation, because I do not want our women to get that diagnosis that, oh my gosh, I could have done something about it if I would have changed my diet, if I would have gotten on the right supplements, if I would have avoided these estrogen disruptors. So do you want to
Right.
talk a little bit about your experience with the Dutch?
Yeah, it's just to reiterate, it's so much more than your mood hormones, right? It can literally be the difference between good health and poor health, and then disease and so on. So yeah, I had mine done, and I would say the biggest takeaway from me, because I don't remember all the numbers, girls, so you don't need to worry about that at all, because your health professional will go over that with you, because it just sort of looks like this map. And they'll explain to you what's high, what's low, if that's your case, and then what you can do, and if necessary, what supplements you need. But what was so important for me that I want to share is that I feel amazing. Yet my estrogen, which is woo, I don't know where it is, but that's the key thing here, girls, is that we cannot feel when our hormones are low. We can tell by our moods and things, like our reaction to things sometimes, but I sleep really well. Am I moody? Sometimes, but not out of the ordinary. So it's so important to get these things checked, because things can be changing inside your body and you cannot feel them. And estrogen in particular is very protective in the human body. It helps protect our heart. It helps protect our joints. And if your estrogen's low, I don't feel different in my heart, and my joints don't feel different right now. But that can have an impact if you don't have this protective hormone going on. So definitely recommend getting the testing done. It's not cheap, I'll just say that, because there's so many different things that you can get done, but just start with one thing, one at a time. Even if you save up for a little bit and then get it done, it's so worth it, because you're either going to pay now to keep your good health prevention, or you're going to pay a lot more later on when your health is not where you need it to be and you've got to get it back in order. It is so worth it. Plus, you're going to eliminate that journey of feeling crappy and getting worse and then wondering and all of that. Keep your health optimal by getting these things done. So, yeah, as I said, the biggest takeaway is I had no idea, because I can't feel that my estrogen levels are dropping, but things are changing. Like it or not, they are midlife. So,
Thank you for that. So let's talk about endocrine disruptors. Remember, I mentioned that endocrine
yeah.
system is one of our systems, and that's like the adrenals and the thyroid, right? The thyroid is part of that. And so when you hear of endocrine disruptors, I want you to think that they're man-made. Okay, so think of like plastic, man-made. And then you go, well, what's in the plastic? Oh, there's an ingredient called BPA. And then you can go ding, 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 endocrine disruptor. It means that that is going to get into your body and bloodstream and start to create some havoc, some chaos, especially if you're already, I'm going to say, naturally, what do you call it? Just a sec here.
Estrogen dominant.
Thank you, estrogen dominant. Had too many E's going through my head.
I know, I knew that was what.
And okay, so yeah, so that's what we're talking about here is man-made ingredients that are mimicking our estrogen that we naturally have in our body. And so you become way too much of the estrogen. And a lot of women are really bad detoxers. I found out that I am not a great detoxer. So for me personally, I am absolutely at higher risk because I will recycle those dangerous estrogens around. So I want to reduce my risk of breast cancer and uterine cancer by making sure that I'm in control as much as I can be to minimize the amount of man-made mimicking estrogens.
So, what test did you do, Nicole, that you found out that you are not a great processor of estrogen, in case
Two
people are
tests.
feeling the thing?
The first one I did was I went through the DNA company, which is outside of Toronto, and I got my DNA done. That test definitely confirmed I was not a great detoxer. I also did my Dutch hormone panel, which you did as well, and that is
Yep.
another test to show that you need extra help in your pathway. So those were the two tests that I found out. Really, really valuable information.
Right. And what are some signs in someone's body that would give them an indication that, maybe I don't detox that well? What are some things that they could be experiencing or seeing that could
So
say that?
one of the big ones would start off with is alcohol.
Uh-huh.
Alcohol is, a toxin. Let's be clear, right? When
Yeah.
we drink alcohol, think of it. Unfortunately, it really is a poison. It's a fun poison for some of us if we have it
Right.
just every once in a while. But to be clear, so then the question is, how do you detox from that? Do you have the right pathways to move through it through your liver and clear it as fast? And so you'll know friends, I'm the friend that early on in my, drinking career, I would be the one that would be hungover for 3 days or 4 days. Like my brain would feel it. Even drinking alcohol, my face would flush. Even coffee. I didn't drink coffee up until I got into menopause because I just could not even drink a half a cup. I would shake. I would get, my face would flush. So those are just a couple examples of like, how do you show up with coffee or stimulants? How do you show up with alcohol? Okay, that would be a good indication that you probably aren't the greatest detoxer. Or then you have some friends that literally can outdrink anybody and then get up and do it all over again. And they're like, I don't
Right?
feel anything. And you're like, excuse me? That would put me in the hospital. Okay. So
Right.
I hope that helps. So endocrine disruptors, they're really found in just about everyday products. Today, Melissa and I really want to focus on the kitchen. Okay, so Melissa's going to talk about kind of three things that she thinks that you can up, or we'll call it like a swap, that
Hmm.
you can do better. So Melissa, do you want to
Yeah.
start with your top three?
Yep. All right. Let's just hit them where it hurts. Coffee makers. And all of you are like, what? So yes, those black plastic coffee makers, and I've used them forever until I learned, are full of what Nicole was saying, BPA, which stands for bisphenol A. So it's a chemical that's used to manufacture coffee makers or other plastics. So when you're making your coffee and you put the water in, that heat, which is even worse, is going through the plastic machine. Okay. And so there's that part of it. And then you know how we use those white filters, you put your grounds in the white filter, and now you're running your coffee through the plastic and also through that white filter. Well, guess what? That white filter was bleached to become white. So you're getting this delicious morning elixir, but it's really a chemical concoction because you've got the hot water running through with the BPAs, and then you've got the bleach in your filter. So, what are some simple things you can do? One, swap out your white paper filter for a bamboo filter. They're brown, so that's a start. Or ditch that coffee maker and buy a new one. Or what I switched to was simply a French press, and they are so cheap. Like $20, $30. They're glass, and you just put the grinds in it. You put the lid on it. It's like this press, and you just let it sit there. And actually, the coffee tastes way better than I've ever had in one of those machines. And another cool thing is that paper that's the filter is actually absorbing the oil that's naturally occurring in a coffee bean. People are thinking oil in a bean. Well, yeah, coffee's bean, right? So there is oil. So it traps all that oil and it makes your coffee more acidic. Whereas the French press, there isn't a filter. So you're actually getting some of that healthy oil from the bean, and your coffee is going to taste better and be less acidic. Try it. I have converted everyone that has switched over to a press or has had a coffee at my house. I'm like, wow, it tastes so good. Like it is. So that's the worst of it. Maybe this one too. Air fryers. Who has an air fryer? Like everybody is cooking with air fryers because we think, oh, we're doing something so good for ourselves. We're using air to cook instead of. Same as your coffee maker, guys. It is full of BPAs. But there are brands that you can buy, and I just looked some up here so that I could share with you guys that do not have BPAs in them. So one is called Instant Vortex Plus. Number two is Ninja Max XL air fryer. The next one is Go Wise USA 7-quart electric fryer. Number four is Cosori, Cosori Pro, number three. And then number five is Philips Turbo Star. So there's lots of options for switching. Having said that, don't stress out with Nicole and I sharing these things with you. You don't, if you want to, great, go ahead, swap out all these appliances, but one thing at a time, right? As we know better, we can start to do better. As I learned, I didn't go and like throw out everything in my kitchen. I just, when I finished that, I got this. Or when a new appliance came on sale, I went and I got that. And then lastly, I just want to talk about plastics. Like think of your water bottles or your storage containers. In your average bottle of water, do you know they have found over 250,000 micro sized pieces of plastic in it? And that means we're ingesting it. And then in your Tupperware containers, and a lot of people are putting hot food in there, or even worse, they're using it in the microwave. And that is just acting like your food just acts like a leech, and it sucks those toxins out of the plastic container and into the food, and then we consume it. And that results in being endocrine disruptors. So disrupting the proper function of our hormones, which all the things that we talked to already, disrupting your mood, your sleep, and ultimately disease in your body. So definitely switch to ideally glass Tupperware containers. That's just a brand name, but get the glass, way, way better. And same with your water bottles. A stainless steel or even a glass water bottle is way, way better. And again, just over time, I just recently got rid of all my plastic. I was using just those cheap ones. You just buy them because you're traveling or whatever, and they're kind of a one use and then throw them out. But I just recently bought all glass, and I've been using better water bottles forever. But the good thing is the glass is heavier. So my kids don't take it anymore. It stays in my house. So it's more affordable that way too. So how about you, Nicole? What else in our kitchen can you recommend doing some swaps?
So I would start with your cookware.
Mm.
When we think that we're in the kitchen every day and we're making breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we're using the stove, is have you invested in really good cookware? There's a great movie that I watched years ago called The Devil That You Know, and it was a whole story on Teflon. And let me tell you, did I cry in that documentary, because that level of chemicals that were leaching in water and leaching in for the cattle to be like drinking out of, like the number of people that lived around the Teflon plant, and even the workers, the amount of cancers, the amount of death in animals because they were exposed to Teflon. And there's a whole lawsuit, and you can look it up. So when we think of your cookware, please avoid Teflon. It is a cancer causing ingredient that has been proven. And we want to start to look at stainless steel or cast iron. There's many, like you can just search top 10 healthiest like pots and pan set, and then you can pick and choose whatever is in your budget. We have
So
a, yeah.
I just want to ask you, Nicole, because this is what always comes to my mind, and a lot of people say, but how do you cook then? Because everything sticks. That's why everyone switched to Teflon, because you can put your egg in that pan and it just slides around. There's nothing worse than making an egg or whatever, and you leave half of it behind. So
Yeah.
what do we
Yes.
do?
So there are some healthier companies that are using not Teflon technology, but other safer technology. So if you look up a pan called the green pan, that's a very common one that people trade up or swap, is called the green pan.
Okay.
I've had that. I've gotten it as Christmas gifts. This is actually when I started to really upgrade, is I would put, and they're expensive. I'm not going to lie. Like, we're so used to being able to go and get like a $10 Teflon pan. Well, this one, I think on its own for a small one is about $80 to $100. So I put that like on my Christmas list or my birthday list, right? Is getting gifts or giving gifts that are going to up level people's health and
But how long,
caraway. Hmm.
but how long do they last? Because those $10 pans, as you say,
Hmm.
they don't last.
Right.
And you end up, then that goes into the landfill. So
Yeah.
that's not good either. But you end up
Yeah.
having to spend more money to buy
Right.
another one anyways. That was like me
Yeah.
with a blender. I bought the cheap blenders all the time. And then I finally said, that's it. I'm
Yeah.
buying um Vitamix, and I've had it for 9 years. So how
Hmm.
long did those good pans last?
Well, if you follow the directions on it, because there are always directions on how to get more life out of your cookware, it's going to last a lot longer for sure. Even like it takes used to like getting used to a stainless steel is there's a proper way to use stainless steel. There's the proper heat, there's the proper
Right.
oils. And some people, if you're cooking like you're cooking in Teflon, you're going to be really disappointed. So this is then the next thing I want to talk about is, so you've got this really good cookware, or maybe you're still using Teflon, but then you're adding the oils. And there's what's called really dangerous seed oils to be consuming, which causes inflammation, and it's not good for us. So when you're thinking about cooking, you want to think, I got used to a long time ago by one of my mentors is to do a lot of steaming using like broths, chicken broth, vegetable broth, beef broth, and doing a lot of steaming and even avoiding the oils. Like if you're going to use the oil, use like an avocado oil or a really high quality olive oil, and use it raw. Use it raw in your salad dressing or whatever you're drizzling on a little bit, just to get those beautiful oils into your body. But some of the dangerous seed oils is the cotton oil, canola oil, corn oils like that canola, cotton seeds, I said soy, sunflower oils, very susceptible to going rancid very fast. So if you're going to cook in anything, you want to think about coconut oil, avocado oil, or olive oil. But to start thinking about reducing that oil, I'd rather have that oil in raw form, right? And using it on your vegetables. And then the
Right.
last one is utensils. Most people don't think, like, if you were to go into your kitchen and start looking at your utensils, as Melissa said, do they have BPA in them? Have you gotten your utensils at the dollar store? That would be like your flipper or, your soup ladle. And those, again, you get heat on them and they are putting those chemicals right into your food. So if you're already upgraded your food and you're buying organic, why would you want to take a cheap plastic utensil and put those chemicals into your food? So you can use stuff like your silicone. There's some really healthy silicone out there that even if it's heated, nothing gets leached. Wooden spoons, and also stainless steel utensils. So we've given you a lot here. This whole theme for the month of May is about spring detox and really being mindful of where the dangerous estrogens are coming into our life and how we can reduce it. A lot of you have followed me along my journey of getting rid of the dye. We're going to be talking about really going through the household. We're going to go through the bathroom. We're going to go through the whole house, and we're going to educate you. We just took you into the kitchen and gave you some opportunities to do some swaps. I hope that you found this information really valuable. If you did, make sure that you share this with a woman that really needs to hear this message. And anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
As I always say, just one step at a time. Like we gave you a whole bunch of things that you can change. Just pick one. Just pick one. Maybe you just simply change out the oil you're using for now. And in time, when that pan is ready to go, then put it on your list for birthday or Mother's Day's coming up, guys. So you could get your family to chip in and get you a new pan, something like that. One step at a time. Don't let this stress you out.
Great. See you next week.
Bye, guys.